In the resting chamber, a female lieutenant wearing a striking spacesuit appeared. In response to her fairly impressive figure, Yan Xiaoshu protested that the military was just too evil. The female lieutenant smiled. "Hi, everyone, my name is Zhao Jin. I am the officer of this ship. I have already given everyone my contact number. If you require anything, please do not hesitate to contact me." As Zhao Jin raised her hand, a ray of light shot forth, displaying the ship's interior structure. However, there was one particular layer which was marked in yellow and affixed with a warning label. Zhao Jin tapped her finger on the exterior. "Let me first give an introduction about the basic situation here. This is our current location, that is the resting chamber, and that is the training room. In there, you can find the newest training equipment, which includes a military-grade gravity chamber. Let me allocate your individual rooms to you. This is the dining hall. Half of the ship's crew dines here, and the open hours are from 0500 to 2300. Ma'am, I have a question." Yan Xiaoshu raised his hand. Zhao Jin laughed. "You can just call me Zhao Jin, please go ahead." "May I find you even if I have no problems?" As soon as the question was asked, and May's tiny fingers pinched Tyrant Su. "Oh, if you're not afraid to die, feel free to try, my little friend." These people were pretty lively. However, Zhao Jin's superiors gave explicit instructions that these were important people and hence required appropriate treatment. After introducing the main spaces, Zhao Jin walked everyone through the said spaces. The other areas are all restricted areas. I hope no one will intrude. On top of that, for long-distance space travel, the most important thing is. Zhao Jin continued to introduce all types of rules regarding spaceships. After all, this was the first time they had such a long flight. Since the ship crew had other duties, Zhao Jin did not want these guests to interrupt their work. Yan Xiaoshu whispered in Wang Zheng's ear, "Bro, the uniforms are great, no wonder you always wanted to join the military." Wang Zheng was speechless. He had grand ideals. Even though all the military systems ads always featured beautiful female officers, he only took a few glances and nothing more. As for what it meant to be a beautiful military officer, Zhao Jin clearly satisfied this criteria. She had fair, healthy skin and exotic facial features. Standing at 1.8 meters tall with a pair of gorgeous, slender legs, Zhao Jin was incredibly attractive. Most notably, the uniform she was wearing hugged her skin and really showcased her amazing figure. "Alright, that is about it. If there is anything you do not understand, please feel free to contact me." Zhao Jin left with a smile. Her responsibility was over for now. These two kids were pretty perverted. Were all kids like that? It was free time for Zhao Jin and she obviously could not follow the rest of the crowd as she had to attend to her responsibilities. On the other hand, Leader Xiao Fei immediately ran to the lab with no intention of coming out. There were many experiments that couldn't be perfectly executed on Earth. This was an opportunity too good to miss. Xiao Fei's schedule was packed to the brim and she had no extra capacity for any of her students, not even Wang Zheng. In no time, only Wang Zheng, Yan Xiaoshu, Yi Zisu, and An Mei were left in the resting chamber. Before Yan Xiaoshu had a chance to speak, An Mei started to pinch his ear. Did someone have a secret chat? That is a pity, because with such intense emotions, that was said a little too loudly. Was it very loud? It obviously was not. However, there was still lingering lust between Yan Xiaoshu and An Mei. An Mei definitely knew what Yan Xiaoshu had whispered into Wang Zheng's ear. Lieutenant Zhao Jin certainly was exceptional. Her legs were as great as gold, and An Mei paled in comparison. Most importantly, she had the maturity and poise of a soldier, which made her exceptionally attractive to males. "You must have misheard, I said that the military uniform is very sharp. Thereafter, I wanted to tailor a set for you, and then." Yan Xiaoshu's smile clearly became lewd. An Mei blushed. She could not handle such a move. "Do you want to die? These things should be said in private." Wang Zheng and Yi Zisu exchanged glances. What a scandalous couple. "Let's go and check the training room," Yan Zisu suggested. She knew that Wang Zheng would be very interested in this and thought that this would be a great time to ditch the other two so they could have their own private time. An Mei was sometimes very admirable. She was daring enough to speak and take action. An Mei had also shared that love ought to be passionate and vigorous regardless of the outcome. However, Yi Zissou could not do it. The crew training room included top-notch facilities that was way beyond the ordinary. On top of that, there was greater control over the variance of intensity. Xiao Fei's experiments on this flight were the most important thing she had to do. There was ample time since New Olympus did not fly very fast. At times, there were curved flight paths and there were spatial jumps at others. Sometimes, the ship would rest in deep space for a while. Wang Zheng and his friends spent all 3 days playing. It was essentially their first time on such a flight. On the other hand, Xiao Fei was familiar with this process. After 3 days of travel, the New Olympus finally made it through the Pluto Federation. After refueling, the ship flew into the intergalactic wormhole. The wormhole was one of humanity's most important technologies. It connected the whole of the Milky Way alliance. It could be said that one's speed when traveling through it approached the speed of light and was one of the greatest breakthroughs since air travel. Actually, the wormhole had already existed since thousands of years ago. It was only recently that it became operational and complete. Simply put, a wormhole was a spatial distortion. Everyone, can I have your attention please? Everyone, can I have your attention please? This is your captain speaking. In 5 minutes, we will be entering the wormhole. All passengers please take your seats. The one on the intercom was ship's captain, Major General Torres. As the large battleship entered the wormhole, the ship shook violently. Everyone felt slightly nauseous, but this was not a persistent sensation. In that moment, everything turned pitch black. The experience was similar to a fish being poured into a dark bottle or into the beak of a large monster. The speed of flight was entirely different from that during ordinary travel. Thankfully, after a few minutes, the ship emerged from the wormhole. New Olympus was now 220 light-years away from the solar system. The Sky River system was a small planetary system. When humanity first discovered it, it possessed a star smaller than but about 10 billion times older than the Sun. The New Olympus flew straight towards the Sky River system's star. This was an important opportunity to test the gravitational force of the star for physics experiments. Wang Zheng did not participate much in the experiments. In his words, he was purely a theoretical scientist. Letting him do experiments was not useful. Whatever he could think of, he could calculate it. If he could not calculate the result, there was no point doing experiments and it could only be a postulation at best. Wang Zheng spent most of the time training. IG training was intensifying. Back in the academy, there was not much time and it was seldom peaceful. This was a rare opportunity for Wang Zheng to improve himself. His schedule was packed and he hoped to make a breakthrough in physical conditioning. Apart from looking at Xiao Fei's notes to him during his rest time, Wang Zheng would sometimes be dragged along by Yan Xiaoshu to play cards and watch television with Yi Zissou and Mei. Ding dong, please come in. Wang Zheng was doing push-ups in his room and the digital display indicated 129. There was a voice in the room. Wang Zheng stole a glance from the corner of his eye. It was Yi Zissou. He smiled. Are Mei and Yan Xiaoshu at it again? I cannot keep being the third wheel, so I came to find you, said Yi Zissou with a smile. She sat quietly in a corner. If you're not in a rush, let me finish this set of push-ups. I still have 164 more to go. Wang Zheng started to do his push-ups even quicker. No rush, Wang Zheng. Sometimes I really admire your persistence. Yi Zissou smiled, turned around, and sat at a table in a corner. Both of her hands were behind her back. Her eyes were glued on Wang Zheng and she no longer spoke. In no time, the remaining push-ups were completed. Wang Zheng stood up and wiped off his sweat. This was his 10th repetition, and he had met his training goal for the day. Let's go, shall we go check out the scenery? Yi Zissou nodded. The two of them went to the window of the ship. At this point, New Olympus was already close to the Sky River star. The bright and deadly radiation of the star exuberated from a distance. Shades of gold glistened from the sun. Most of the strong rays were absorbed by the safety filters of the ship, but the glory and intensity of the star remained in view. From the view of the window, one could see that in the same direction as New Olympus, there was a comet with a long tail flying towards the Sky River star. At this close proximity in the deep dark space, one could see the white tail of the comet reflecting the rays of the sun shining especially brightly in the darkness. The view was absolutely mesmerizing. Wang Zheng did not speak and neither did Yi Zishu. Standing shoulder to shoulder, they stood in front of the window of the ship. The comet slowly accelerated under the influence of gravity. The two of them were marveled by such a brilliant spectacle. Yi Zishu stood by the right side of Wang Zheng. Just a gentle move from her left hand would allow her to touch Wang Zheng's right hand. At times, she felt like she was that comet. "In May, I say the two definitely are here. I am not late, right?" Yan Xiaoshu's voice could be heard from a distance. Yi Zishu smiled faintly and turned around. She adjusted her hair with her left hand. "It is about time. Any later and you would have missed everything." Yan Xiaoshu blinked. This seemed weird. It seemed as though now was not a good time. As the comet entered the star, it did not seem as impressive. Relative to the star, it only seemed like a black spot. If the ship were not up close, perhaps it would not be visible to the naked eye. Beautiful things are often easily lost, and May was awkward, but girls were always awkward in the presence of beautiful things. "Shall we play a game of cards?" The atmosphere was odd, but it wasn't great as if it was too silent. At the same time, it was not the worst either as nothing had really happened. It was just the sight of a comet disintegrating. It was not as though someone had died. Although Yan Xiaoshu made that suggestion, he was never the sentimental type. "Sure. What about you, Wang Zheng?" asked Yi Zishu as she nodded with a smile. "All right." The resting chamber was slightly empty. There were only 2 or 3 people with tired looks on their faces, who apparently had just finished work. Due to the nature of experimental physics, apart from Wang Zheng and his friends, it was very difficult to find anyone else resting leisurely in the new Olympus. Even the communications team had just a little bit of rest time over dinner every day, barely affording to show their faces to the rest of the crew. Right after explaining the current situation of the new Olympus, they had to resume their busy lives. After the 4 finished a round of poker, Yan Xiaoshu had lost so much he ought to have changed his name to Shu, lose. "You are not allowed to count cards," Tyrant Su yelled fruitlessly while Mei laughed hysterically. She did not know how to count cards, but she had still won a significant amount. "I am done, let us play another game. Last night, I found a great board game and played it all night. Boss, shall we test it?" Yan Xiaoshu expressed great confidence in this new game of his. Naturally, Wang Zheng agreed. He actually did love games, he just did not have the time to play. Yan Xiaoshu set the game up with haste, whistling a happy tune as he did so. A screen appeared on the table. Buttons and controls emerged in the 4 corners of the screen. Wang Zheng had never played such an old-style game before. The screen depicted a wrestling match. Would anyone like to battle? Yan Xiaoshu speedily made a decision. "Let me try." Wang Zheng smiled. A minute later, Yan Xiaoshu's face of confidence turned stiff and lifeless. He had lost. "Hang on, that did not count. I was distracted, let's try again." This time, it was only 30 seconds. Yan Xiaoshu definitely did not offer incense to his ancestors when he woke up this morning. He had lost again, and this time, it was an utter defeat. Again, Yi Zishu, would you like to play? Boss, ladies first. Student Yan's greatest strength was that he never admitted defeat. If his technique was not as strong as his competitors, he would employ better strategies. Given how he had lost after showcasing that initial demeanor of confidence, he was determined to find a way to win and reclaim some dignity. "Sure." Yi Zishu nodded. 20 seconds later, Yan Xiaoshu almost teared earnestly. It became apparent that Wang Zheng had tried to spare him some dignity, restraining himself from finishing Xiaoshu off within 30 seconds. On the other hand, Yi Zishu tried too hard initially and won within a period of only 20 seconds. And Mei laughed. "Yan Xiaoshu, didn't you say that you were a pro yesterday?" After several rounds, Yan Xiaoshu decided to quit. "This is basically bullying. Why don't you let me win for a change?" Yi Zishu laughed again. "It is not that we did not try to let you win. We have been playing with only one hand." Yan Xiaoshu swore that he would never play games which required fast fingers, because it was only self-torture. Raising his head, he noticed that many other crew members were here in the resting chamber. After checking his watch, he realized that this was precisely the time for changing shifts. As busy as it got, it was still important to maintain one's body in top physical and mental condition in the depths of the cosmos. Yan Xiaoshu suddenly shifted his attention to a nearby table, noting, that person with fair skin has got some charm. Could it be that such a man has gone through plastic surgery? The sole person at that table noticed that Yan Xiaoshu had been stealing glances at him. In the direction of Wang Zheng, he gave a faint smile and raised his glass in an elegant manner. He is an Atlantean, it is his natural appearance, said Yi Zisu. What, Atlanteans are still alive? This is the first time I've met one. Boss, shall we say hi and get a photo? Yan Xiaosu's eyes lit up. Clearly having heard Yan Xiaosu's comments, that man laughed. Such a scenario had occurred on numerous occasions. Humans had always been curious about the Atlantean people. Although Xiaosu's actions might have appeared rude, there was ultimately a shroud of mystery surrounding them. Greetings, everyone, I am indeed someone who is alive. My name is Ya Shuman, and I am a military intelligence officer. Ya Shuman took the initiative and gave an introduction. Pleasure to meet you. I am Wang Zheng. This is Yi Zisu, and Mei. That person over there is my good friend, Yan Xiaoshu. Sorry if our earlier comment offended you in any way, apologies about that. Wang Zheng smiled and stood up. It is not big deal. Atlantean people also know how to crack jokes. Ya Shuman smiled gently, looking at the four people around him. Don't just keep standing, come and have a seat. It is really my first time, so I was a little excited. Yan Xiaoshu tried to restore normalcy in the conversation lest he embarrass the human race. When I just left Atlantis and first met humans, I also cracked many jokes, but I gradually got used to it. Ya Shuman had a pleasant, amiable attitude. As he shared embarrassing tales of his interactions with humans, the four of them laughed uncontrollably. My gosh, is every Atlantean person as humorous as you are? Yan Xiaoshu found that all his preconceptions about Atlantean people had been shattered. Thank you, I cannot say the same for everyone, but I feel that I am fairly typical of an Atlantean person. That is right then. So it seems that Atlantean people are like that. In the past, I used to think that all of them were rigid and religious. Ah, that must be a misunderstanding. The reason why I came to the world of humans was to deepen mutual understanding. Wang Zheng is the genius who won the Alliance Technological Prize. Ya Shuman looked at Wang Zheng with some suspicion. Our boss is all-knowing, he even got through an IG competition selection. Tyrant Su, being the big mouth that he was, continued to rattle off praise incessantly. Do you possess ability X? Ya Shuman asked curiously. Wang Zheng shook his head. No, please do not listen to Xiaosu's nonsense. I've only been through one selection. I heard that Atlantean people all possess great strength and that their machines are especially unique. Wang Zheng had deep interest regarding this. After their conversation, he learned a lot more about the Atlanteans' machines and found that they were indeed a force to be reckoned with. Ya Shuman laughed. Atlantean people are humans too, but the species diverged earlier. Our development focuses on the brain. Our machines require a lot of time and attention, whereas human machines are more balanced. Each have their own merits. Wang Zheng, if you have a chance, you should really go to Atlantis. The four of them were taken aback. Atlantis people seldom extended an invitation to visit their home planet. If there is a chance, I will definitely do it. Please carry on chatting. I still have work and have to head off now, said Ya Shuman. Pleasure to meet you, hope to see you again. Everyone bid their goodbyes and waited till Ya Shuman walked out of the door before they took their seats. Suddenly, Yan Xiaoshu touched his forehead. Strange, there was something odd about just now. That person is not a gorgeous lady, but why did I feel like I had to behave in front of him? And Mei stroked Xiaosu's ears. You want a gorgeous lady? Yes, isn't that you? Yan Xiaoshu was used to how Mei acted, clearly evidenced by how he easily deflected her sarcasm. Of course, Mei was not really jealous either and understood that Xiaoshu, lacking the tenacity to take action, was simply smack-talking. However, she still played along with Xiaoshu. The two continued to talk passionately and their numerous desires flowed out of their mouths as they chattered. Wang Zheng and Yi Zisu began to back off quickly. I am going to do some self-study. Yi Zisu could no longer bear to watch. I am going for training. Wang Zheng left in a hurry. When Wang Zheng arrived, there was already someone in the gravity room. He was of a large stature, doing push-ups with 5 times gravity. Wang Jung did not go easy either as he executed his own training regime in the same room. The other person in the room caught a glance but did not pay much attention. He was under 5 times gravity, yet he trained as though he was not being affected. Clearly this young man was not too shabby. This person was Changsun, who had his vision restored. Not only that, because his treatment involved some degree of genetic improvements, his body had also become more muscular. He was now given a new path to tread. Half an hour later, Changsun could not help but notice this young man. Although his training was rigorous, it did not seem that 5 times gravity was of any difficulty to him. "Great job, young man. Which school are you from?" "I am from Aries College," said Wang Jung with a smile as he continued with his training. It was no easy feat to speak and train at the same time. "One of the top 3 academies on Earth. It is a shame that I did not manage to pass the entrance exam to these military academies." This was one of Changsun's deep-rooted regrets. "My dream is to become an honorable soldier. The military college is just a place for learning." "That is interesting. I want to increase the gravity by another multiple. Is that okay with you?" Changsun was keen on testing Wang Jung. "No problem." Wang Jung continued with his training, which involved 10 one-handed push-ups followed by 10 frog jumps and another 10 one-handed push-ups. As 6 times gravity took effect, Wang felt some weight on his shoulders but found it refreshing. His body immediately reacted to the gravitational pull with an opposing force. This gravity room was far better than any of those found outside. The gravity here was relatively stable. Changsun similarly felt rejuvenated and continued to test the limits of his body. During the whole hour, neither of them talked. They were totally engrossed in their own regimes, but they silently exchanged a sense of mutual admiration for each other. Thereafter, the gravity room made a beeping sound and the gravitational forces eased, signifying the designated rest time. Changsun rose, checking Wang Jung out. His face looked normal, but his muscles looked very firm. He did not seem very well built in spite of his strength. In the past, Changsun used to despise people from the military colleges as he thought that these people had never undergone difficult trials. However, Wang Jung clearly was not such a person. "Let us introduce ourselves. I am Changsun, member of the Special Forces." Changsun extended his hand. Wang Jung stared blankly. He had good memory, and this name, Changsun, seemed particularly familiar. It couldn't be such a coincidence, could it? "Wang Jung, systems freshman. Sorry, I previously saw a CT video and there was a famed warrior, Lord of the Shadows, called Changsun." Changsun roared out in laughter. "I can't believe I'm being recognized here. Seems like I've got my own fair share of fame. Young lad, we hit off well. Wanna go get a drink together? You're of age, right?" Wang Jung shrugged. "I started drinking when I was 10. "Ha. My man. Wait for me right here, I'll go back and get some." Back in the room, 4 indecent-looking persons were playing cards on Changsun's bed. "You bastards, you're wearing shoes on the bed again," he chided, walking to the side. "Where's my beer?" "I didn't do it. Rabbit did it," a short, dark, bulky-looking man said, giggling. Despite his honest looks, he had the most funny ideas and was the most crooked of them all. "You piece of sh*t. You blame everything on me. How dare you say it was me?" Rabbit was a big, white man. His body was almost entirely covered in tattoos. A black, menacing rabbit was tattooed on his left cheek, intimidating. "Shut up, Baldy, go get some bottles, but don't get into any trouble," Changsun warned. "Don't worry. Leave it to me." Baldy had a bald, shiny head. With a red bandana on his forehead, he claimed to have hailed from a religious background. Even his personality was as honest as a monk's. He was a rather skillful fighter. "Hey, boss, you're back early today, Yay. Oh right, Phoenix, who else other than us is on this long-distance trip?" Phoenix was a woman on the outside, but definitely a man on the inside. Whoever treated her like a lady was bound to be killed by her in battle. But regardless, with a female's body, Phoenix often exhibited feminine traits, such as an eye for detail. She was her team's intel collector and analyst. "A group of scientists, I think. There are some students. They won some award in technology, different from us." "Any experts?" "Oh, what happened?" Changsun nodded. Nothing much. I saw a pretty solid lad while training. He could bench 6 times his weight and do single-handed push-ups. He climbed onto the bed with his shoes still on while speaking. He took over Baldy's cards and joined in the game. Tisk. That's nothing. A newbie like that, I can push him over using just one finger. Yeah, move aside. This guy seems alright, he studies mecha too. Alright, boss. People from these schools, the most they need is a few days in the army on the ground and they'll be highly ranked. They we aren't even on the same path. Changsun smiled and said nothing. The 4 of them got into their game. 10 minutes later, Baldy agilely hopped in like a monkey. We've been drinking too much, somebody put up surveillance. This wasn't easy to get out. Drink sparingly. There was liquor on board the new Olympics, but it was not for them, and to be frank, they did not fit in with the people on the ship at all. They looked like they came from a different world altogether. If not for the fact that the mission they were on was a special one, they might not even have the rights to get on the ship. They too despised those sissies who hid in the ship all day long. They couldn't stand their air of arrogance and would rather stay in the room to play cards. With liquor in his arms, Changsun made his way back to the training center. He didn't know that the lad called Wang Jung would still be around. It seemed like they were just fated. But the scene that unfolded before him shook him to the core. How could that be possible? 10 times his weight, and based on the records, it had been 5 minutes since the weights had been activated. Seeing Changsun, Wang Jung turned the gravity off and got up. Kid, you're amazing. Here, catch. Changsun tossed a bottle of alcohol over. The 2 of them leaned against the wall, each holding a bottle, and chatted. Changsun talked about his life, things that his teammates could not understand or empathize with. The few of them had been on battle mode their whole lives, and a peaceful life was an entirely different world to them. But for Changsun, his experiences had enriched his soul. Wang Jung was awestruck listening to his stories. He used to only think that a warrior like that should not have let his talents go to waste. Perhaps it was his willpower at work. Not only did Changsun recover in therapy, but his physical strength improved. At the same time, the military gave him greater responsibilities. It could all be seen as a blessing in disguise. Changsun also listened to Wang Jung's dreams and aspirations. Upon hearing it was Wang Jung's childhood dream to become a mech warrior, Changsun almost spat out laughing. Damn! I thought I was the only person baited into that. So you were tricked by the advertisement too. Every man dreamt to be a hero. Not all men lived for power. Right? I was lucky. Otherwise, even the military wouldn't take me in, let alone a military school. Wang Jung shared the story about his 28-point genetic score. Changsun laughed heartily. Kid, there's an ancient saying for humankind. Heaven's duty befalls upon all but heart and soul. Body and mind will first go through hardship and tests, something along those lines. Whatever it is, it means that the king, the duke, and the general think highly of you. You are a good piece of material. I hope so. Actually, on one hand, it's to realize my dreams. On the other hand, I also hope to get the girl I like through my own hard work. While having had some drinks, Wang Jung couldn't help but think of Aina. It was fun hanging out with Changsun. He was like an elder brother, someone he could talk about the matters of the heart with. Life is bitter and short, so you've got to live it out. As long as you think it's right, you think it's worth it, who cares if the rest of the world disagrees? That's right, a man must be harsher on himself. Or other men will be harsh on you, Changsun added on. Wang Jung was stunned for a second and then burst out laughing. Classic, cheers to that line. They then parted ways. They might meet again, or perhaps their paths might never cross ever again. But as a living person, experiences like this were a blessing. Wang Jung hummed a tune. He was awful at it, but he was delighted. He had met a real warrior. A warrior who had faced death and was brave about it. This was what Wang Jung aspired to become. In school, he was mostly in contact with children whose aspirations were greater than the universe, or with some inexperienced so-called masters. A drunk Wang Jung bumped into Xiao Fei. For others, this was a pleasant trip. But to Xiao Fei, it was a rare opportunity to work. It was as though her life was research and her lover was science. Xiao Fei looked haggard. Seemed like the experiment had progressed significantly. There was a price to pay for the huge funding they had received. Research could not be stagnant, because investors were also asking to see progress. Seeing Wang Zheng, Xiao Fei smiled. She had shouldered everything on her own. How bold, even getting some drinks, student Wang Zheng. This, Professor, I only had a little bit. It was said that liquor could embolden someone, but meeting Xiao Fei woke him up. Look how scared you are. Well, it's the holidays and you're of age. Just don't drink too much. If you have time, forget it. Inspiration can't be attained with days of research work. Xiao Fei smiled, but Wang Zheng could still see tiredness in her eyes. All of a sudden, he felt like he couldn't bear it any longer even though old merchant had told him to pace things out and not let things progress too quickly. Professor, actually, I've come up with some immature ideas in these couple of days, and I've been wanting to speak with you, Wang Zheng said. His mind spun as he thought about this. He had come up with some kind of new direction for the research to take. Oh, you want to share? Xiao Fei wasn't too serious or bothered. After all, many hurdles could not be crossed in an entire lifetime. It was impossible to cross one every 3 to 5 days. I was thinking, since we are able to use relative navigation, why can't we think about using relative speed? With both in warp space, as long as the target and course are the same, wouldn't that work like it does in reality? Wang Zheng said, and Xiao Fei froze. Such simple logic. Why hadn't she thought of it this way, ever? Of course, what they needed to do was just that. The theory of space between non-warped and warped realities had not been tested, but neither was the space between warped realities. They needed this to be the first step. Xiao Fei took a step forward agitatedly. She blushed and stopped in her tracks. Sigh, you lovable boy. If you were not in love with someone, I'd really make you mine. Here, come with me to the laboratory right now. Tell everyone this piece of good news. Without waiting for an answer, she grabbed Wang Zheng and started walking. He brought this upon himself. Wang Zheng had wanted to return to his room to get a good rest, but seeing how happy Xiao Fei was, it was all worth it. Even though Wang Zheng had always wanted to become a mech warrior, he also believed that what mankind had today was all because of these great scientists. They gave their everything to science and were very respectable. This was also the case for another old man. Although his aspirations did not lie here, student Wang was altruistic. The whole laboratory exploded with ground-shaking cheers, so much so that even the new Olympus seemed to jerk. Wang Zheng was going to be touched by this entire group of people. Marcus stared at Wang Zheng, shaking his head. He opened his mouth, but instead of words coming out, he burst out laughing. He was a core member of the team, so he naturally knew some of the problems they faced. While they were not severe problems, they needed a direction. It was best that they took as little time as possible from theory to application. It didn't have to be a huge one, but at least a small part had to be tested. It was baffling how Wang Zheng's mind worked. He was clearly spinning from drinking, yet he could come up with a breakthrough like that. Seems like I should drink more in the future. Yi Zisu and the rest rushed over upon receiving the news. They were elated. After some cheering, Xiao Fei clapped and said, "No hurry to celebrate. Marcus, let's do this in separate teams and build up the theory's framework." Even though they had to work overtime, everyone was happy and excited. After leaving the Sky River system and going through the second wormhole, the ship arrived at the Sagittarius galaxy. Everyone was still excited about their first interstellar journey, but Xiao Fei and her team were completely, crazily engrossed in work. Wang Zheng's suggestion made good sense, and Xiao Fei and Marcus led their teams to do whatever they could to work it out. They wanted to make Wang Zheng take part in the experiments, but just one line from Wang Zheng had convinced the two of them otherwise. He was a free-roaming thinker. He would definitely go berserk if he was cooped up in a laboratory all day. Marcus didn't know to laugh or cry at that. It made it seem that they were all working for Wang Zheng. But the charm of science made them all forget about it very quickly. Your attention, please, all crew and passengers. The ship will have a layover on the Northern Star for a 12-hour maintenance. You may get some rest or shop at the business district in Space Avenue. The Northern Star is one of the first stars which humanity colonized in Sagittarius galaxy. It is mineral-rich. Its gravitational force is 5 times that of Earth. It is also the most important port and mineral producer in Sagittarius. Sigh, Captain Zhao Jing has such a beautiful voice, Tyrant Su said, seemingly enjoying himself every much. And Mei rolled her eyes. Seems like you have a thing for Jings, do you need me to help you and your first love get back together? Tyrant Su shivered and wiped his sweat. Dear, I was just joking around. Don't do this, I'll get nightmares. There's a plenty of time, so everybody can go over to Space Avenue to get some local produce from the Northern Star. But don't wander off too far. I have a meeting to attend, so I won't be joining all of you, said Yi Zisu. Unlike them, Yi Zisu was not on a leisure trip. OMG had taken the opportunity to expand their businesses. At the few places they had stopped over at, OMG branches had sent representatives to make contact. As the largest mineral-producing planet, the Northern Star had a huge demand for mecha used in harvesting. This time around, Yi Zisu was also hoping to expand their market on the Northern Star. While a few hours may not necessarily yield any real results, it would be a good start. Their winning of the Technological Contribution Award could also be used to promote OMG Group's good foresight and bright future, and that could boost their partner's confidence. Susu, go ahead and do what you need to do, or let Wang Zheng be your bodyguard, and Mei giggled. I'm going to a business meeting, not a fight. You all have fun, and remember to take more pictures, Yi Zisu smiled. Yi Zisu followed a crew member and left. Wang Zheng, Yan Xiaoshu, and Mei boarded the magnetic car and entered Space Avenue on the Northern Star excitedly. The Northern Star's economic status was similar to that of Earth, but it had a very, very different ecological environment. Even though it had immense gravitational force, its plants were tall and huge. Having been under mankind's rule for thousands of years, this planet had slowly turned from a pure, mineral production plant into an environment suitable for humans to live. The early immigrants had lived in an anti-gravity facility, but as new generations were born and raised, mankind eventually evolved to be completely adapted to the 5 times greater gravitational force and set their roots on the planet. To them, they were Northerners. While human genes took longer to evolve, their genes were powerful. The new generations were mostly able to adapt to the environment here, and they eventually formed the basis of Northern's developments. The Northern Star was geographically located in the Sagittarius belt, and it had an important role in the Sagittarius alliance. The soldiers on the Northern Star were all strong and capable men, and they nurtured mech warriors. After all, a skeletal structure that could withstand 5 times the normal force had an explosive strength that other planets could not compare. At the same time, even though they were very strong, their physiques were unaffected. Their bone density was much greater than normal humans, and that was what made it curious. Citizens of the Northern Star were also the Milky Way Alliance's favorite recruits for soldiers. Tyrant Su cursed as he read the information. Are they really that great? They're described like gods and goddesses. But it seems like the Northern Star's military capabilities can't even be put on a stage. Wang Zheng chuckled. The Northern Star has a relatively long history of war. Especially in their war against the Zerg, they performed extremely well. They produce plenty of mech warriors here, but they are weaker when fighting in space. In other words, their bodies compressed their brains, Tyrant Su laughed. In the era of interstellar travel, fleet warriors were way more highly ranked than mech warriors, apart from carrier-based mech warriors. But to become a carrier-based mech warrior, they had to be the cream of the crop. They could do everything, operate a mech, as well as a spaceship. All right, we came here to travel, can't you talk about something else? And Mei could not bear with these brothers. What is that? Looks delicious, Yan Xiaoshu said, picking up something that looked like pudding. Respected sir, hello. This is the sperm of the Northern Star tree frogs. It is protein-rich and contains all types of antioxidants. It nourishes the body, improves sexual stimulation, and prolongs life. Price, 5,000 Milky Way dollars. A digital system on the side explained. Yan Xiaoshu was stunned and tossed it aside quickly. Damn, I don't want this. What do you think that is? An elixir of life, $5,000, he thought to himself. And Mei laughed. It wasn't easy getting to the Northern Star. It'd be silly to just shop and do nothing. Let's go walk around. Do we have enough time? 12 hours is more than enough. I've checked. There's a 6-hour express tour. We can sightsee and take some pictures. It's said that the Northern Star has some unique traits, and May chirped. Girls were always excited about new environments. Boss, what do you think? Wang Jung looked out. Sure, as long as it doesn't affect our journey, I'd like to take a look around too. The trip cost each person $3,000. Considering it was just a round trip with a tour guide, it was really expensive. But it was a long way out, so it was pretty worth their money. The tour guide was a friendly and good-looking lady. Tyrant Su especially became generous when there were beautiful women around, and he gave tips as though they were worth nothing, without a care for how much money old Yan gave him for the trip. This worried Wang Jun sometimes. This kid was flirty, and God knows when In Mei would get rid of him. But In Mei did not seem angry about this. Friends, the plants on Norton are exceptionally big and strong because of the large gravitational force and the mineral-rich soil. This is a unique trait of the Northern Star, and it is very rare at other places, said the pretty guide. But because the gravity is too great here, please put on the anti-gravity belt as we move along. Please do not remove them on your own. We had a passenger remove the belt on his own and he ended up fracturing everywhere. Knowing that this group of 3 came from Ares College on Earth, the tour guide's smiles showed more sincerity. She too was a student, and she was out to earn a few extra dollars during the holidays. The tour had a route of its own, and the vehicle very quickly left Space Avenue. Taking in fresh, natural air, Wang Jung stretched his arms and legs. Anyone who had been on a spaceship for a long time would feel something upon landing. Wang Jung especially felt a huge force. This was something that the Moon and Space City were incomparable to. The planet was full of life and natural forces, only second to Earth. It was weird how this place was way more welcoming than Earth. Everything seemed amicable to him. His 5 senses were heightened and extremely clear. His thoughts extended into his surroundings. Yan Xiaoshu and In Mei were making all sorts of poses for pictures and were busy uploading them into their circles to show off. Even the pretty tour guide was rather cooperative and joined them in their photos. Wang Jung, on the other hand, was busy enjoying himself. Soon, he even stopped talking to the rest. After passing by a few unique the Northern Star landmarks, the vehicle came to a stop outside a mining entrance that looked as old as a museum. Friends, this was a mineral mine centuries ago. It is now a memorial. The Northern Star had a humble beginning. Our environment used to be badly damaged and poorly maintained, but with our careful construction, it has become one of the most suitable living environments for mankind. It is said that a great leader once hailed from our planet. Pretty tour guide Sally smiled. A great leader? Who? No idea. We don't know his name, but the older people always say so, Sally replied. In Mei and Yan Xiaoshu giggled. Earth had nurtured too many great personalities. No place else could compare with Earth in terms of history. You can come on down to take a look. Remember to make sure your anti-gravity belts are properly buckled. Feel free to get any memorabilia you like. Things are slightly cheaper here than in Space Avenue, Sally said. Hurry, Xiaoshu. Look, what an ancient-looking robot. It's the ultimate antique. Hee hee. This was one of the first mining assistants. In the early days, there were not many immigrants who worked in the development of the Northern Star. These robots contributed to help the manual labor. Even though Wang Jung was following the 3 of them around, his heart and soul were not present. He had a weird, indescribable feeling from the moment he stepped foot on the Northern Star. Wang Jung eventually fell behind. He removed the anti-gravity belt subconsciously. This thing was getting in his way of making contact with the Northern Star. He touched the antique door lightly. There were intersecting claw marks all over it. Probably left by the Zerg. Seems like this mine was used as a shelter to fend against Zerg invasions in the past. Upon first contact, Wang Jung froze. Images flooded into his head. A young man stood in front of him, smiled, nodded, and then slowly disappeared again. In that instant, Wang Jung entered a curious world. It was as though the final thin film that separated him and the world was lifted, and the primordial regression technique naturally came to mind. What was different was that the technique used to spin only in his head, but this time, he could sense the world around him spinning too. He could also sense the 5 elements of earth, sea, fire, wind, and space become clear. Not just sense, but it felt like he could control them. Was this an illusion? Boss, don't scare me. No, I have to do CPR, Tyrant Sue said helplessly. Wang Jung opened his eyes. Get lost. Next time something like that happens, please get a beautiful woman. Wang Jung pushed Yan Xiaoshu aside, and Sally didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She patted herself on the chest and said, Phew, I was so frightened. I thought something had happened to you. Ah, I was in a bit of a trance. Why? Wang Jung asked, bewildered. You clung on to that pillar as if you were clinging on for life. It was as if you had fallen so deeply in love with it that you just wouldn't let go, and Mei explained. Wang Jung was always in some sort of weird situation. Oh, I was thinking about some things and I lost track of everything else. You're so eccentric, so strong even in a trance. The three of us together couldn't make you budge a single inch. Sally looked curiously at Wang Jung. He had only used one hand, but the three of them could not make him move a single bit. Haha, boss is the trump card of our military school, Tyrant Sue laughed. Sally acknowledged him with an, oh, and was not too surprised. Given Earth's standards, this matter was nothing. Eyes fell on Wang Jung. Ah, why did you remove your belt? Wang Jung smiled and said, it's fine, I can handle it, even if it's 5 times gravity. You sure? There is no need to act brave. Sally suspiciously stared at Wang Jung. There were many who liked to act like they were stronger than they really were. Therefore, an agreement had to be signed before heading out on missions. If the belt was taken out by an individual, the consequences should be borne only by that individual. Wang Jung shook his arms. I am completely fine. My daily training utilized 5 times gravity, and I think the gravity here is less than 5 times. Also, this feels more natural and different from the kind of monotony felt in the training room. Admiration shone in Sally's eyes. The accurate gravity level here is 4.6 to 4.9 times. We people of the Northern Star believe that natural gravity is protective and that it is a blessing to those that have been granted with humanity. Indeed. Excuse me, but I would like to stay here for a while more, is that fine? Asked Wang Jung. Of course you may. We have plenty of time and can wait for you. Sally moved closer to Wang Jung since those that could adapt to Northern gravity deserve the respect of the people of Northern. Wang Jung looked at the mining area, but the image did not appear again. Could it have been an illusion? No, he could not have been hallucinating, since Wang Jung believed in his own spiritual power and would definitely not be hallucinating. At the moment he saw that image, it was as if he was lifted to another realm. The primordial regression technique operated differently now. How was this possible? After all, it was not too convenient to figure out what happened where he was currently. Otherwise, Wang Jung would have wanted to ask Bonehead to clarify. This was due to the strange influence just now. There was something off about him. Even in his previous state, he could handle 5 times gravity. Yet strangely, after that strange interaction, the effect of the gravity was unnoticeable. These were two completely different concepts. Sally, you were saying that the Northern Star produced a heroic man. What was that about? Oh, it is a legend told to me by my grandmother. My grandmother said that it was told to her by her grandmother. During the battle between the Zerg and humans, an all-powerful figure appeared on Northern Star. His fist could shatter the skies and his feet could crush the earth. It was him who eliminated the Zerg, said Sally. Yan Xiaoshu could not take it and started complaining. Did your grandmother also tell you that she was dreaming? Sally was not angry and said, there are many such stories in the Northern Star. Although unbacked and unproven, we believe that the Northern Star does have such a hero. In fact, currently, even the people of the Northern Star did not believe that tale. However, since people of the older generations passed it down, people continued to do so because they thought it was interesting. The passing image emerged in Wang Jung's mind. Even though the image has blurred, Wang Jung still remembered that pair of domineering eyes. They looking over the world as though he was the king looking over his people. What kind of person was that? Half an hour passed. They had stayed for a long time and were prepared to head back. Before heading back, Wang Jung took a look at the old mining area. There were too many secrets in this world. On the journey back, Mei and Yan Xiaoshu were chatting like birds. Both of them also kept Sally's Skylink number, and they now had an additional Norton Star friend. They also invited Sally to come to Earth to play when she was free. This trip was highly fruitful. They bought plenty of souvenirs and also made new friends. Wang Jung went into his own room upon returning to the ship. Xiaoshu, look how miserable your buddies are. I said earlier that princesses are unreliable and men need to be down to earth, said In Mei. Yan Xiaoshu coughed several times and wondered if she was warning him. In Mei, we can create opportunities, but do not care too much. I believe we should let nature take its course. If it is not fated, forcefully matching both parties will only harm them. Okay, stop acting like a love guru. I do not know much about your tricks. Anyway, I'm siding with my best friend here. In Mei glanced at Yan Xiaoshu. She knew how to separate between love and hate and was fearless regardless of who she was up against. I will firmly stand on your side, laughed Yan Xiaoshu. You're tactful, I will give you a reward tonight. Oh, is it? Why don't we? Tyrant Su whispered into In Mei's ear. In Mei started blushing and said, why are your thoughts so dirty? Tyrant Su pleaded his innocence and said, what is dirty? This is known as affection. Don't you think that facing the vast, night sky is quite therapeutic and can lift your spirits? In Mei was speechless. This guy can turn all romantic places into occasions to make love. Wang Jung closed the door and then proceeded to summon Bonehead out of the Rubik's Cube. Bonehead appeared. Bonehead, what happened just now? Wang Jung felt Bonehead's confusion. You don't know what happened? Bonehead shook his head and nodded subsequently. This is a strange form of origin energy. The image of the person that appeared before you was definitely one who had transcended that of a super soldier into that of a god. The energy left just now should be residual energy from at least 600 years ago. This completely exceeded Bonehead's calculations. How could such a strong force exist? Wang Jung was stunned and wondered whether the legend was true. Had there been such a heroic person among humans? Truth be told, there were similar stories on Earth. In the history of Earth, there were once defiant warriors. However, based on current logical analysis, this was impossible. How could humans reach such a level? If they did, they would be invincible beyond the Milky Way. Bonehead, what is up with you? Your Highness, there are two possible theories. The first is that this energy here was what gave rise to the godly warrior you saw before. The second is that the warrior you saw was actually so terrifyingly powerful and had exceeded the laws of nature and should not exist. Bonehead's eyes were flashing as data passed through it constantly. It seemed like he would implode soon at the rate he was analyzing. Wang Jung was not interested in this. He was interested only in why that wave of energy was in contact with him. Congratulations, Your Highness. For an unknown reason, the connection between your biological body from this plane and the universe has been obstructed. However, because of the assistance of this wave of energy, your distance to a breakthrough has been significantly reduced. Bonehead said that it was rather simple to him too, and he would not think about things that he could not figure out. Wang Jung was emotionally affected by this. The universe was so huge and filled with mysteries, and he was rather fortunate. Oh, right, Bonehead, I always wanted to ask you this. What is the name of the emperor of your Rand Empire? Bonehead immediately had a serious look on his face with his big eyes shining through. Your Highness, the Rand Empire's founding emperor is also its most noble presence. He is Li Feng, the god of this plane. Wang Jung nodded. This name felt ordinary to him. Having observed that Bonehead was about to introduce the history of the Rand Empire, Wang Jung quickly sent Bonehead back. Since there was only a little battle energy left, it could not be wasted on allowing him to tell his story. The elderly loved telling stories, and this included even old robots. He was, however, a youngster, and what was important was the breakthrough of the primordial regression technique. Wang Jung immediately went into meditative thinking. He carefully operated the primordial regression technique and discovered something different in the technique now. In the past, utilization of the technique only happened completely within the body. But now, once the technique was being used, he could feel that his surroundings were being stimulated by the technique. However, every time he wanted to take another step forward, the feeling would disappear. It was as if there was someone or something controlling the energy and stopping him. A planet had the ability to regulate itself. When there were excessive living beings on a planet, volcano eruptions, earthquakes, or even ice ages could occur naturally. This was how a planet healed itself. In fact, it was the same for the universe. When a living being's existence threatened the universe, it would also enter a form of self-healing. This was the law of the universe. Some forces, however, could defy this law. However, this law would not disappear. An individual could not affect the entire universe. Of course, Wang Zheng was not thinking of this at that time. He was so close to a breakthrough thanks to his good fortune, and it would suck if he did not manage a breakthrough. Wang Zheng had a feeling that if he did manage a breakthrough, he would be able to obtain his much coveted ability X. On the faraway Earth, Li Er was looking at his hands, both of which had a steady stream of energy pouring out. Was this inherited? As long as he could handle and control it, he could fight the entire world. Beside him, Droop was crying. The dream that the Kronos family has been chasing for thousands of years was about to become a reality, and all they needed now was time. The spacecraft slowly took off. Yi Zisu's negotiations did not go smoothly, as the other party was not interested in robots produced on Earth. Maybe their company possessed clout on Earth, but it was nothing on the Northern Star. OMG wanted to expand its business in the Northern Star and also wanted to use Northern's iron ore for the development of new robots. The Northern Star's mines were some of the best ones in the Milky Way Alliance. If they were able to collaborate, it would bring about huge cost savings. Even though OMG's princess personally handled the business this time around, the results were not what they expected. Yi Zisu was rather calm, however, since there was a low chance of success in the first place. She was only making contacts now, and she planned to look for opportunities in the future. Zhao Jing brought in Mei and Yi Zisu to the Fleet Lounge for some rest. Of course, it was a girls' world. The thought of a group of pretty girls in uniforms made Yan Xiaoshu and Wang Zheng want to go along, but that was clearly impossible. Boss, you should get some rest and not train all day. Let us duo Q. I will join you too. Yan Xiaoshu had this burning desire for a long time and enjoyed a spectacular performance from close distance. Wang Zheng laughed and said, "That's fine, it can be counted as a completion of collaboration." Two birds with one stone. The two of them found the lounge and accessed the Milky Way server. Student Skeleton was online. Yan Xiaoshu changed the difficulty level to low since he knew Wang Zheng didn't want things within CT to disrupt his normal life. He was extra careful in this aspect. It felt amazing to be duo queuing. There was a choice to enter the intergalactic area, since they had accessed the Milky Way server. Boss, stop messing around in the solar system. Since it's an interstellar expedition, we should experience the combat prowess of other planets. Yan Xiaoshu rubbed his hands excitedly. Okay, let's choose the Northern Star then. Wang Zheng logged into the Sagittarius system and chose the Northern Star battle area. The CT world without skeleton was merely black and white, bland and boring. However, when the skeleton appeared, flames instantly rose up. The speed of response to his login was as fast as the speed of light. Solon was calm and possessed an admirable aura as he was officially named the chairman of the solar system region. McLaren was about to retire, and Solon had demonstrated vision and decisiveness in the course of his work. He also achieved huge results and led Asia to be the best performing region in the solar system. When everyone else was attempting to find a niche in the CT battlegrounds to market to viewers, he discovered an amateur world where it was the largest and closest to life. Here, everyone was a hero. In fact, Solon had set up his own specialized team headed by himself to immediately act upon the appearance of Skeleton. However, this time Solon had made a small mistake as Skeleton chose a region outside of the solar system. Or could it be the Northern Star? The Northern Star was among the group of planets discovered earliest by humans and had a long history. In the early days, there was nothing there and nobody wanted to visit that star. As it was developed over time, especially when humans started to get used to the 5 times gravity, the Northern Star's status had been slowly shifting as well. Now, the Northern Star was one of the most powerful stars in the Sagittarius constellation and produced high-quality warrior machines. The warriors on Northern were not fanciful, but they were durable and fierce. The Sagittarius Military Alliance liked to recruit here, and even the Milky Way Alliance admired these warriors greatly. They could be described as the cornerstone of the army. The Northern Star was rather robust in terms of its culture and customs too. They were split into two factions. One faction consisted of citizens who were not used to 5 times gravity, while the other faction had citizens who were used to it. In the CT circle, these people were rather intimidating. The attacks of these warriors were at the very limit of strength. As such, few would visit Norton for leisure. The unfairness of the 5 times gravity would discourage many who came from other planets and constellations. Boss, this title? Solon pondered for a moment and pounded the table as these few words came out of his mouth. Skeleton Expedition. Actually, there was no need to officially change one's title. Everyone could see that once another player crossed galaxies, their ID would indicate their place of origin. Skeleton wanted to challenge the Northern Star. On the other side, Tyrant Su had already excitedly registered his ID, which read, Disrespectful Tyrant. Wang Jung was speechless. Could Tyrant Su be any less disciplined? The Northern Star was for team battles, and Skeleton's fans were highly anticipating it. This was a rare sight to see Skeleton queuing with a friend. With Skeleton's skill level, it was likely that this disrespectful tyrant would be an expert himself. It appeared as if Skeleton had provided himself with an additional form of insurance. However, the players of the Northern Star were not to be messed with after all. Have you sent the messages out? Solon asked. Yes, boss. Solon nodded, and there was some stress that accompanied his excitement. This was because his message was not only sent to Earth but the entire solar system. This was a privilege that only his current position offered. Although he was named chairman, only with McLaren's approval could he do what he wanted. Solon could not wait for his formal appointment. At that point, such a power would be naturally granted to him. It was a double-edged sword. If successful, an appointment would come quicker and smoother, but it could be withdrawn upon failure. Solon could no longer look back at this point. Let Skeleton's expedition begin. Dominate the Milky Way. The Skeleton Corp's flaming skull logo was ignited. Brother Shu, is there some sort of problem with your design? It makes us seem like galactic pirates. Yao Ailun was skeptical of the new logo. Ailun, this is trendy. Don't you think it's cool? It matches with the invasion theme as well. I am such genius. Chen Shu was highly satisfied with his own design. I think it's too plain. To me, Skeleton is noble and has plenty of accomplishments. I suggest you put a stalk of rose in his mouth, said Yao Ailun. Do I need to add a pair of golden glasses? Chen Shu joked. Yao Ailun was the targeted recipient of the joke. Well, it's all right. The Skeleton Corp's flag started fluttering on all major platforms. A flaming skeleton with a black rose in its mouth was rather domineering. Light up the flag. Begin the battle. There were about 13 million viewers with VIP making up 8.6 million of them. Among them, about 7 million came from Earth and the other million coming from other planets in the solar system. Even before the competition began, the amount of anticipation was already at such levels. No one knew who their opponents were, what the difficulty level was, and whether the competition required skill. The undisciplined Tyrant Su was looking at the viewership happily since he contributed to it as well. Wang Jung had already brought Yan Xiaoshu into the matching interface. Wang Jung's 100% win record would definitely lead him to be matched with an opponent of a high caliber. However, with Yan Xiaoshu around, the opponent's skill level would likely be lower. As Yan Xiaoshu was new, his unknown win rate would not cause the opponent's level to be lowered by much. The broadcast was about to begin, but the terrifyingly high influx of viewers attracted the Norton officials' attention. Ross didn't know whether to laugh or cry upon hearing this news. The world has changed. Even rabbits who come to Earth dare to escape from their areas. Boss, such high VIP traffic could mean that the opponent is of a high caliber. I heard that the chairman at the solar system region is about to retire. To use such a method to build up a career and involve us, Northern Star, in the process, what a moron. Ross lamented that this type of approach was rather common, allowing an expert to register for a second account and roam around in a big region to satisfy his poor, superficial pride was something only a weak region such as Earth would do. However, they had found the wrong place. This was the Northern Star, where just the power of 5 times gravity alone could kill you. CT's 5 times gravity did not really use the power of 5 times gravity but only increased the operating difficulty by 5 times. This was no issue to the people of the Northern Star. Of course, those people who were not adapted to it could only choose areas without 5 times gravity to play. This was also a specialty of the Northern Star. Assign them to the area with 5 times gravity, said Ross, who did not care much about the situation as long as the challengers were not able to capitalize on a loophole. The Northern Star's overall standards were high, and this was not much of an issue to them. Wang Zheng and Yan Xiaosu's matchmaking had concluded. They entered a battle on a prime spot on the Northern Star. It was 5 versus 5 at one of the old mining areas on the Northern Star with 5 times gravity. This was a classic battleground of the Northern Star. About 600 to 700 years ago, in an era where humans were battling the Zerg, this place provided old memories of those times and a sense of adventure. It seems like the Northern Star players were about to give their guests a surprise. But, the people who were matched with Wang Zheng and Yan Xiaoshu were stunned. Where did the two of you come from? They were facing 3 opponents of the Gold 1 tier and 2 of the Gold 3 tier. On this side, it was 2 of them who were from Earth and had low levels. One teammate who was of the Gold 3 tier and the other 2 were of the Gold 5 tier. How could the system match them as such? It was practically a sin. Hi, everyone, we are CT lovers from Earth. I am Tyrant. You mean a moronic tyrant? This is a 5 times gravity area. Go over to the ordinary area, for Christ's sake. The 3 people from the Northern Star were speechless. Since we are here, you should accommodate us, said Tyrant Su in a provoking way. Since he had backing, he was filled with confidence. Tyrant Su's composure and arrogance stunned the other 3. Earth had experts as well, and these 2 could be the strongest or had trained in 5 times gravity, which would be not too bad. Tyrant Su then arrogantly opened the mech storeroom. Tyrant Su, who registered as a Smurf, immediately loaded the mecha selection screen. After that, the 3 players from the Northern Star stared at Tyrant Su, who was showing off his mech collection. It was worth tens of thousands of Milky Way dollars. He was so rich. In the end, Tyrant Su chose the Aslan mech named Radiant Knight, which was equipped with a sword and a shield. The market price was 12,000 Milky Way dollars. The 3 people from the Northern Star did not say anything. Even if they were to attack such a mech, they would have to keep quiet. The viewers watching from the solar system were stunned. With the partner of the skeleton using the Radiant Knight, would this be the moment that shot the Northern Star to fame? While Wang Zheng was looking at the war god number 1 and the strong warrior, he suddenly thought of Yi Zisu. Even though he didn't know whether it would work, he decided to try at the very least. The stare-off between the 2 opposing sides ended. Hercules? Were they trying to lose on purpose with this agriculture mech from Earth? When Wang Zheng chose the agriculture machinery, the VIP viewership hit 10 million, it was too easy. How would an agriculture machine perform under 5 times gravity? Would it face many difficulties? The 3 teammates were dumbfounded. What could this mean? One used the high-end Radiant Knight while one used a piece of unknown agriculture machinery. Did it get any more exciting than this? The lights were up and they entered the battleground. There were not that many options in terms of arena selection, and as a CT veteran, Yan Xiaoshu must have had experience playing in the Northern Star arenas. This time he was fully prepared for the battle ahead. As the mech touched the ground, Tyrant Su felt euphoric. He took a step forward and wanted to work up a stunning pose that could even make the headlines. However, it was as if there was an obstacle in front of it. The mech started shaking and then fell forward abruptly. Not only was Yan Xiaoshu shocked, the whole world was too. What was going on? The 3 players from the Northern Star ran away in shame. Tyrant, UB*TCH. Do you know that this arena has 5 times gravity? Have you played before in such conditions? Yan Xiaoshu moved his mech into an upright position. However, it was evident that its limbs felt a sense of restraint and there was something wrong with the mech. It could not walk, let alone battle. Tyrant Su started sweating profusely. He started thinking that if he didn't do anything, he would not embarrass himself. On the other hand, perhaps he would find out what his retribution for his sins were. This stunned the live viewers in the solar system region. This was the master? Suddenly everyone calmed down. think that this must have been done on purpose as a form of joke. Tyrant, that's so cool of you. This is known as not showing off my hand first in order to allow my enemies to underestimate me. The Northern Star folks are too unprofessional and out of line. Looking forward to the super warrior, Wang Jung piloted the Hercules. It was fortunate that this degree of resistance did not require him to exert 5 times the strength. Tyrant Su whispered to Wang Jung, "Boss, the situation looks bad." Wang Jung laughed. "I will handle it. Gentlemen, Tyrant is just here to accompany me and observe the battle, he will not participate." The other 3 Northern Star players stomped away furiously at their teammates' arrogance. "Who do you think you are, 4 against 5, are you playing with us? F***CK, should have chosen a better opponent. Are you an actor? Who's the one with the money on the table? I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. Jackrabbit, this is my promotional match. Idiots from Earth, go back to your planet and drink milk. Don't let me see you again, I will kill you, holes. In front of countless viewers, a verbal battle took place. Even the Northern Star language was used as all kinds of abuse could be heard. While the relentless scolding took place, the gold-ranked players on the other side laughed. Trying to play around on the Northern Star? They truly are blind dogs. Earth, just what kind of place is that? Even if they were kings there, being able to reach the silver rank here would be considered exceptional. It looked just like a comedy. Ross was laughing out loud. This was just too foolish. Only those who had never stepped into an arena with 5 times gravity would fall like that. Boss, spit it out. Ross glared. The viewer count on the opposite side did not decrease, it has already broken 12 million viewers. Ross stood paralyzed. These people must be sick in the mind. How was it realistic to have 12 million lunatics watching? The 3 Northern players continued to spit threats at Wang Jung. Who do you think you are, 4 against 5? Why did we get a penniless farmer? Go earn enough money and then return to your farm. All kinds of insults were shouted that even people made of mud would be offended. Even Wang Jung himself could not bear it anymore. I was mistaken, it is 1 versus 5, you will see. F***CK, he really think he's all that. Fine, the 3 of us will see how you fall. We will count it as your win if you can even walk to the central area. What a fool. Damn it, count my bad luck to meet these 2 inferior fools. In fact, it was because Wang Jung and Yan Xiaoshu were Earthlings that this actually happened. If not, the opponents would most likely have quit the match. But to chance upon players from another region was a whole new matter altogether. The Hercules stepped forward steadily. The opposing 5 mecha had also arrived in front of him. An agricultural mech without a laser gun actually led the charge. I think even my fart can make him fly. I will deliver the final blow. Let's show the Earthlings our signature Northern 6-step attack, the gold-ranked guy with the rail cannon said. The other 4 laughed and did not disagree with that. Both parties' mecha entered each other's line of vision, showcasing absolutely no intention to hide. Hiding or whatever you call it was also totally meaningless in such a battlefield. The 9th generation Northern Knight equipped with the rail cannon was already making a beeline towards Wang Jung. Amidst the storm, the alloy rifle was beautifully drawn and a beautiful arc could be seen in the air. On the Earthling side, the commentators had started to speak. Old Deer could not help but sigh, truly foolish. This was perhaps the most apt comment. Based on Skeleton's past demonstration of his capabilities, 5 times gravity certainly was not an issue to him. As the opposing sides approached each other, the 9th generation Northern Knight suddenly exploded forward with a burst of speed. The mech charged forward with a menacing force while firing the rail cannon at the Hercules. With a force this intense, 1 shot would have done it. At this time, the Hercules shovel appeared and 2 large booms resounded. First blood. The 9th generation Northern Knight was bashed apart by 1 hit of the shovel. While everyone was still in midst of shock, the Hercules was already charging towards the other 4. The other 4 immediately instinctively reacted. Some pulled out their beam sabers and 1 pulled out a long spear while surrounding the Hercules. What a joke, they were going to pierce him to death. The Hercules had an attack speed significantly slower than the others. The other 4 mech had already lashed out towards the Hercules. The Hercules shovel spun in response, causing a continuous burst of sounds while sending sparks flying as the shovel deflected their attacks. Such a move was useless. The opposing four were coordinating an attack from every direction. Even if the B*****'s rotating shovel could withstand the force, he could only attack one opponent and not defend himself from the other three. Now the audience count had hit 14 million, of which 4 million watchers from the Milky Way were using VVIP accounts. The same question was floating on everyone's mind. What was the use of only attacking one opponent? Yan Xiaoshu clenched his fists. The Radiant Knight sent punches up into the air as though he was involved in the battle as well. For him, his fighting spirit was also considered important. After a continuous 3 minutes of frenzied attacks, the Hercules was actually still standing and not destroyed. Suddenly, from within the mech could be heard a violent roar. Dear God! Skeleton was pushing the Hercules to its limits. Did he think this was a super mech? This sort of mech was just technically not as capable. To push the Hercules to this extent and with all the creaking noises, this opponent was clearly stretching the mech to its limits. The Hercules suddenly began to spin violently with the shovel smashing out in every direction. Rumble! All of the 4 gold-ranked players suddenly felt an irresistible force being emitted from the Hercules. Another deep roar could be heard from the mech. It leaned over violently. This was a common situation, and it could usually be easily overcome with the pilot exerting a counterbalancing force. Just at that moment, an attack hit all 4 mecha, causing them to feel nausea and dizziness, momentarily paralyzing them. Bang! Double kill. One mecha was directly smashed head-on and exploded. Although the mecha could no longer move, it was still able to activate its energy shield. Bang! Triple kill. Quadra kill. This time it was not the shovel but a hammer that directly smashed the finishing blow on the mech. At the same instant, the shovel lashed out and pierced through the head of another mech. Quadra kill. The head of the mech was sent flying. The energy shield activated, but a burst of sparks flew out in every direction. Finally, the last mech's energy shield had turned on. It regained its mobility and launched a slash onto the Hercules. Yet again, the Hercules shovel started rotating, bang bang bang. The beam saber was disarmed and flew into the air. The mech was sent flying into the air, bang 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 bang. The energy shield burst under the continuous attacks and the shovel was deflected by the shield. Almost less than a second later, a dark object smashed over. The hammer, pentakill. God. What was left of the arena was debris and flames. Only one mech was still intact and standing. One shovel, one hammer. God. Ross's mouth was open too wide that he could easily swallow an ostrich egg. What in the world was that thing? Congratulations, Skeleton, for your first victory in the East, Goddess Bubbly Foam's voice echoed. Old Deer had a dissatisfied and complacent expression. The sound of howls sounded and the flag of the Skeleton Corps was raised. A huge skeleton bathed in flames with a black rose wedged in his mouth could be seen. The 3 Norden players were in a daze. Were they dreaming? Was this a farming mech or a secret weapon produced by Earth? Folks from the Norden Star, you must be blinded by the power of our skeleton god. He finished all of you in seconds. Go to hell. 5 times the gravity? He could handle even 100 times? Their complacency at the start angered half the audience, but now all of them were enlivened. This battle really had the Norden players cheering. Even their strongest king could not produce such a level of ability and execution, especially at a 5 times gravity arena. This was all solely based on the Earthling's naked strength. What was even more ludicrous was that he was using a mech used for farming. Tyrant Su could feel that he was no longer the center of attention and hence lightly sighed. This sucks, how am I going to shine? The other 3 Norden players were stunned looking at the Radiant Knight. F***CK, these guys were truly playing with us. If we could not even beat farming equipments, forget about facing the Radiant Knight. Nordeners, please be more polite, cultured, and educated. None of you are worthy of being my opponents. The entire audience were shocked. Just who could this tyrant be? He barely played and yet was putting up such a front. The 3 Norden players looked at each other, unable to speak a word. Wang Zheng's performance was indeed too frightening. How could one be capable of piloting a mech at this level? Ross was shaking with anger. He indeed did not think much of these earthlings. He did not expect this outcome, and yet he was left in such an embarrassing state. It was no wonder so many millions were watching. They were awaiting Skeleton's performance. He should have known just by looking at the number. Yet he did just the opposite and announced, defeating the kids from Earth. Boss, the forum is exploding, sh*t, quickly take down the post, Ross roared. To think that you played me like that, I will get my revenge. Get me Yuan Long. Just wait and see, I will turn him into a lunatic with the trauma I will soon inflict. Who was Yuan Long? Within Norton CT, he was the strongest king-level player, the one who invented the blitz style of combat. In reality, he was a student at Norton's Radiant College. He had passed the IG trials and was a representative of the Norton Star. Yuan Long did not participate much in battles. It was only for entertainment purposes and to meet some friends. After getting Ross's Skylink, Yuan Long himself was in shock. Some time ago, he had engaged in highly challenging battles whereby he met Ross. It was not his priority to play matches, and he had no ambition to become a professional player. The other party was, however, quite persistent. As such, they were acquaintances. Ross went straight to the point and sent a video to Yuan Long to let him decide. Moreover, Ross had already contacted Solon. He could not just let the matter pass as it was. At Yuan Long's side, Ross was not worried at all. No Norton player could withstand such an insult. Yuan Long was initially uninterested, as he had many opponents and could not possibly entertain all of them. However, after watching the battle replay, his eyes lit up. Unbelievable. Without looking at the battle analysis, Yuan Long could clearly see how the mech used the rotating shovel to not only fend off attacks, but also to paralyze his 4 opponents with the sheer force of the mech's fierce rotation. When the external force was too violent, the energy shield could not provide total protection, resulting in dizziness in the pilots and a slowdown in movement. The Hercules was an agricultural type of mech, and using it would have meant doomsday for any pilot, yet this person was able to create such a result. Yuan Long was clear that the arena had a 5 times gravity level. For an ordinary person to be able to operate the Hercules in that kind of condition, even 7 times gravity would not have been a problem for him. Phenomenal. Yuan Long was excited. It was his first time witnessing such a defensive technique. It was not long before Ross got an affirmative response. The Norton official website immediately hung out a notice. Steel Dragon King vs. Skeleton from Earth. Who was Skeleton? No one on Norton actually knew about him. Nonetheless, Steel Dragon King, who had not appeared in a while, attracted the attention of countless Nortonian spectators. On Earth, Solon simply accepted the challenge. On his path to success, confrontation was unavoidable. It did not matter who Skeleton's opponent was. Wang Jung was nonchalant about it. Since he had to fight, he wanted to leave the opponent speechless. Also, he wanted to test the standard of a so-called elite Norton Star player. Yuan Long's information surfaced quickly. Both sides were top players with astounding past records. The Norton Star players looked at Skeleton's past fighting records. Needless to say, he looked elegantly formidable on the screen, but to them, it just meant that the opponent was too weak. You needed the opponent's cooperation for one's personal performance, and on the Norton Star, if one hoped that the opponent was weak, they would be crushed to death. The last battle took everyone by surprise yet also showcased the skill of a true expert. The second stage of the game was in preparation. Spectators, the second stage has already been confirmed. The opponent is strongest king of last season, an all-time 5th highest ranked player, a true Norton Star expert. The pilot is actually a military cadet and reportedly has the highest IG score in the entire Milky Way Alliance, Young Deer said. Comrade Old Deer, do you think Skeleton has a chance at winning? Bubbly Foam chided. Old Deer coughed. Well, anything is possible. Yuan Long created the Norton Star's popular 6 consecutive strikes in Norton's strong gravity atmosphere. Where's does his expertise lie? Old Deer was experienced. Everyone has seen consecutive strike combination moves. In fact, some strikes even hit up to 100 times. However, this move is different. The instantaneous outburst in a straight line is impossible to dodge, and the defenses of the enemy mech will be destroyed even if the blow is blocked. It is an invincible attack that only Northerners can master with their high bone density and strength. Old dear, isn't it just a simple burst attack? You make it sound so profound. Young dear, brother here left you a milk box. Old dear remained calm and hesitated on commenting any further. The Norton official website provided a video for everyone's reference. The camera switched, showing a Norton star match. It was a War God #1 versus a high-end mech with an energy shield. The War God #1 suddenly attacked with a force completely superior to what was seen on Earth. A commonly used move on Earth was to leverage on the horsepower of the mech's engine, accelerating forward over time. This was different. The attack was executed with the mech looking like an arrow leaving a bow, speeding like a fired shot. Just a mere touch would leave behind the impact of an explosion and send the opponent's weapons flying, leaving behind traces of electrical sparks. After 5 attacks, the opponent's mech would definitely explode. Throughout the process, the opponent seemed to not respond at all, despite being diamond ranked. What followed was a solo match of king-level players fighting against each other. Again, there was the 6 consecutive strikes. After the first blow, the opponent mech seemed to become petrified and then it exploded. There was an analysis of the battle. The first violent shock caused by vibration emitted from the mech's high-speed movement would result in the enemy mech becoming temporarily paralyzed. The response time will depend on the pilot's defensive abilities, and furthermore, the energy shield cannot completely resist the shockwaves. Simply to put, this produced a force that had to be countered by the opponent as well. It was an unparalleled 6-strike attack. The consequences for those who attempted to dodge was even worse as it would result in instantly being shot down. As long as the strikes continued, one could only witness their own loss. That was what everyone said about the Steel Dragon King. You had no choice but to obediently suffer his wrath. This was the 6 dragon lances. What dragon lance? It's obviously a chrysanthemum lance. How can that match up to our skeleton god? Screw off. Soon the technical analysis was out. A comparison of the 2 mecha was shown. Skeleton was using the rotating shovel, and it could withstand a force up to 7 times gravity. However, Steel Dragon King's forceful attacks could reach up to a limit of 8 times gravity. Skeleton, having withstood that amount of force, was still able to execute consecutive strikes. The spectators on Earth stared in speechlessness. This was a Norton player, and 8 times gravity was a piece of cake to these genetically advanced individuals. No matter how lucky Skeleton was, he was still an Earthling. By nature, his body could only withstand a force of 2 times gravity. One needed to possess ability in order to be arrogant. If both were playing on the same level playing field, Skeleton would have emerged victorious, but the opponent was a Northerner. There were already more than 1 million spectators on the Norton Star. The Dragon King's name was reputable, but the only reason there were no more viewers was due to the fact that the opponent was weak. Earthling? What kind of place is that? Do they even have warriors? Aren't there museums everywhere? The best job you can find on Earth is to be a librarian. This was the outside world's understanding of Worth, full of libraries and occupied by a bunch of old people. Skeleton's battle highlights were also broadcasted on Norton, with the focus on the previous battle, but even a force of 7 times gravity failed to impress the Nortoners. That was nothing. On the Norton Star, being able to resist a force 7 times above gravity was not considered something rare. Technique. 1 against 10. Regardless of whatever technique he had, he would be crushed with a single lance. On Earth, the spectator count was slowly reaching 15 million. Solon knew that this was a miracle. It was a new record created in the solar system's history, and it had only been half a year since he started. Skeleton's previous opponents were recreational players, but in current times, he had faced a variety of experts, some of which were among the very best. The Norton Star would be the first battle. When IG players played CT, they were considered to be the crème de la crème of all the players. This was without a doubt. They represented the military schools of their various countries. For ordinary players, only the military or schools would notice their online results. However, for these IG players, they were to be future top-tier generals with names that resounded everywhere. Like Yuan Long, IG players would normally stop playing CT after playing it for a while. This was normal. Real life was a completely different realm with different standards. Could Skeleton survive? After broadcasting Yuan Long's details, Old Deer had a serious expression on his face. Skeleton must be careful. Yuan Long is not an ordinary player. Fancy tricks are useless in front of him. As long as there is a single flaw in his defense, he will be killed in a single strike. Old Deer, your old habit is resurfacing, Bubbly Foam laughed. In the comment section, a series of cartoon emojis could be seen. Those who defended Old Deer were also attacked. Old Deer remained calm. Anyone else in his position would definitely have ended up feeling mad. Bubbly Foam had never seen Old Deer so serious. She believed that what Old Deer said was true. She could simply tell from his expression. Old Deer laughed and switched cameras. I am an Earthling too. Although I may not be Skeleton's fan, I will not be biased. What now? Bubbly Foam was in a daze. Old Deer laughed bitterly. I hope that Skeleton will lose. But not when he is facing such an opponent. We cannot let others look down on Earthlings. Skeleton can win. Old Deer forced a smile. Whatever the result, sometimes I just wish I could simply lose myself in the fervor. Just take a look at what is happening below. The Skeleton Corps had brought out the flaming skeleton flag. Regardless of whether it was an IG or a professional player, he would be destroyed. The mecha were chosen. Skeleton, Hercules Steel Dragon King, War God number 1. There were few players with a preference for the War God number 1. Those who were capable of performing with it were also a minority. However, such a sight was rare on Earth. Competition venue. Fighting ring. It seemed as though both sides did not fancy variety. Wang Zheng was more interested in seeing the opponent's techniques. At this time, Yan Xiaoshu became a spectator. He was a little worried because IG players were difficult to beat. Even if one escaped death, they would lose a layer of skin. The problem was that the level of players within the solar system was not considered high. Since it was a high-level Northern Star player, a difficult battle was inevitable. Amitabha, please let the opponent be a noob. Please let the opponent be a noob. Sadly, Tyrant Sus' prayer did not succeed. Bang! Both mecha appeared on the battlefield. Upon appearing in the ring, the Hercules threw its hammer away. This is done to reduce weight on the mech. The Hercules model is slow after all. Facing such a strong opponent, the hammer will be useless anyways. Old Deer narrated as his professional judgments surfaced. In actual fact, Old Deer was thinking too much. Wang Zheng, on the other hand, thought that he would not need to use the hammer for this fight. Yuan Long was thinking the same thing as Old Deer. It was his first time witnessing such a daring move. However, after thinking about it, the opponent must have specialized in using this mech model. Time trickled by, both mecha did not move even an inch. Yuan Long glanced at his opponent, standing firmly on the other side. It looked as though he could immediately deliver a killer strike and win, but Yuan Long's instincts told him that this was exactly what the opponent wanted. Defense was not Yuan Long's strength, but he was sure he could find a flaw in the opponent's movements. The War God number 1 moved slowly, gradually inching towards the Hercules. The Hercules stayed grounded, slowly adjusting his direction and posture, wielding the shovel. War God stretched out both arms and 2 iron bars and a titanium gun appeared. The Northerner audience studied the Dragon Steel King carefully, waiting for the 6 dragon lances to appear and end it. As he slowly approached the Hercules, there was nowhere left to hide. He is approaching the range for a sudden kill. Old Deer looked at his skylink. A distance of 10 meters is a good distance for a sudden attack. Everyone stared intensely at the battlefield. Boom! An explosion was heard, which resonated in all 4 directions. It was as though the sky had collapsed. The War God had disappeared in front of their very eyes, before swiftly reappearing in front of the Hercules. Many could not believe their eyes. Such explosive power, it was just inhuman. The titanium gun pointed towards the Hercules. Boom! The shovel was not rotating. The shovel actually didn't rotate. It can't rotate. The force cannot be mitigated with the rotation of the shovel. He would kill himself if he tried, Old Deer said. This meant that Skeleton was aware of his opponent's attack power. The first shot glanced off the Hercules' armor. The War God wielded the gun tightly and fired continuously. Bang, 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 4 shots. Was it even possible to dodge? Even in the midst of defense, He was mesmerized by his opponent's power. It was similar to when Skeleton used his rotating shovel to attack his opponent. This was an attack leveraging on inertia. A sixth attack. Another explosion resounded, bang. Finished. Why was it said to be a formidable attack? The last blow concentrated all of the built-up inertia energy of all the previous blows, leaving even Mecha with energy shields defenseless. This was a textbook example of the 6 dragon lances executed by the Dragon King. When the last blow struck out, it would definitely spell certain death without an energy shield. At this point, something strange happened. The shovel that was used for defense suddenly started rotating. Why now? Boom, both mecha were sent flying. Wang Zheng and Yuan Long were both dumbfounded. Wang Zheng thought that he could entangle his opponent, while Yuan Long thought he could win by executing his 6th strike attack. At the same instance, both guys smiled knowingly. They had met their match. The War God No. 1's titanium gun was pointed downwards, dragging the gun along the ground. Was it an invitation to attack? Drown him? Here's the chance? Absolutely unstoppable. Everyone was taken aback by the thunderous explosion. The stance felt quite brutal. Wang Zheng laughed as the Hercules stepped forward slowly. The shovel started rotating again. As the two mecha got closer and closer, the Hercules jumped forward suddenly, directing the shovel towards the opponent. The war god took a graceful step backwards. As the Hercules landed, the mech suddenly dashed forward with great momentum. At this moment, the war god aimed his titanium gun, aiming directly at the Hercules. Yuan Long had watched the video of Skeleton using the Hercules. In order to compensate for the slow movements, the Hercules wanted to use this tactic to catch the opponent off guard. Such a pity, the Hercules was just too slow. Although the shovel was rotating, it was too far from the titanium gun. Yet the war god was in a position to fire a shot and end it. Bang! The Hercules had been shot. The number of spectators from the solar system was gradually approaching 15 million. F***CK. The Dragon King saw through his ploy. Too scary, too defenseless. It felt as though the war god on the opposing side was the real Skeleton. The battle could not end so pitifully, as it was their first time venturing out of the solar system as well. Yuan Long laughed. Not this move. I have barely warmed up. Yuan Long initially thought that the opponent had more tricks up his sleeve, but he felt disappointed at this point. Wang Zheng checked his systems. Luckily, the Hercules was quite durable in real life and the CT parameters were also quite high. Wang Zheng licked his lips. It seemed like he really had to do something to pull out a win. At this moment, the war god moved closer and was repositioning for an attack. Even if one could anticipate it, could they withstand it? No. The only way out was to run. The atmosphere was just too oppressive and too domineering. His rotating shovel was too much of a hassle, and it was difficult to use in this situation. Boom! The war god suddenly approached and yet the same accident happened again. This time, the Hercules advanced forward as well. Although the mech was slow, when pushed to its limits, the mech could still perform. A large sound could be heard as the mech roared to life. The shovel clashed against the titanium gun. Wang Zheng smirked, exerting a sudden force. Leaning landslide. The shovel swung and was rotating fiercely for the second time. The shovel lashed out towards the target. With this ferocious force approaching, Yuan Long instinctively defended with his arm. Boom! The war god was propelled backwards 7 to 8 steps before regaining a foothold. What is happening? It was a simple strategy, but I feel like I'm against an army of thousands. Smart thinking. In the face of immense force, many choose to dodge, but advancing at the same instant will not let the opponent's attack power reach its maximum potential. Old Deer said, however, if your control of the mech is not good, it would be no different from embracing death. Wang Zheng did not think that the opponent could defend against that. He truly possessed impressive reaction and control of the mech. This fight finally had meaning. This opponent wasn't bad at all. Meanwhile, Yuan Long was drowning in his own thoughts. F***CK. Where did this guy come from? With this strength, he could have been a top Norton player. Was this guy from Earth's Academy X? That would be impossible. Only Li was from the Academy, and that guy would not be involved in such useless things. Who are you? Yuan Long bellowed. His opponent stood quietly, with the shovel still rotating in hand. Yuan Long laughed coldly. Regardless, I don't care why you are here today. You will not leave here standing. Let's see if you can handle this. The war god's aura suddenly changed drastically. He spun the titanium gun several times before clutching it tightly. Everyone held their breaths. Could it be, somewhere else in Norden? Yuan Long's pupils began to flash with silver light, ability X. Wang Zheng felt that something was wrong. Just like the battle with Lai Guang, this guy was yet another person who took things seriously. Wang Zheng was truly fired up. He was extremely passionate about everything related to ability X. One could not simply understand the pursuits of someone with a thirst for power. Only Wang Zheng could feel the difference in power in his opponent's stance and weapon usage. It was as though he was battling another person altogether. Yuan Long's heart that was flowing with endless ambition was finally filled to the brim. The war god #1 was finally out to kill. Bang, 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 bang. Like a thunderstorm, the war god struck out with destructive force, each attack faster than the previous by almost 50%, with an intensity many times greater than before. The last blow directly landed on the wall of the arena, causing it to shake violently. The spectators were thoroughly shocked. Just what was this situation? Yuan Long did not attack the Hercules, but instead the walls. What was he doing? Yuan Long slowly turned around, pointing the titanium gun right at the Hercules. This was a declaration of battle. On the Norden Star, this was one of the most arrogant and overbearing ways to declare one's dominance. It was a showcase of the attack that would eventually eliminate the opponent. It was as though he was saying, I am going to destroy you like that, watch and learn, you can't hide. The Northerner spectators were all pumped up. This was the stance they were expecting from Yuan Long. It was how he started his 6-strike combo years back. No one knew how to dodge such an attack, and thus its reputation flourished. Many amateur players were also eager to master this death attack that was created just for the Northerners. Who would have thought that Yuan Long would have further refined his 6-attack technique to an even more deadly triple blitz? The key was to maintain the strength in each attack and to give everything in the last blow as a final strike. An instant power level was shown on the lower right corner of the live broadcast. The last blow recorded a power equivalent to 1000, leaving the audience speechless. A count of 1000 was sufficient to break the limits of the conventional energy shield. That meant that even with an energy shield, the blow was sufficient to destroy the shield and the mech. Legend has it that this was what the top warriors in various quarters were ultimately pursuing. It was difficult to operate a laser gun in complex terrains. To end a close combat battle quickly, an amazing attack had to be developed. Thus, many professionals attempted to develop a strike that could penetrate through the energy shield and physically strike the enemy mech. To that regard, using a power level system, it was discovered that a value of 1000 was needed. A similar concept existed in CT, but it was definitely not attainable by ordinary players. Yuan Long was the main force representing the Norden Star in IG, and this undefeatable triple Dragonlance could help him ascend through the crowd and give him the status necessary to join the main IG team. In actual fact, Yuan Long was a young chap who did not like to be so arrogant during court as a Northerner. To acknowledge the opponent was to admit defeat. To declare war was a more likely stance as a person from Norden. His opponent was obviously of similar caliber, but he had to declare war in a more extravagant way. Northerners were known as kings of battles after all. Even for a CT amateur, to hit a power level of 1000 was equivalent to being a big whale, a player who could crush opponents with merely just their pressure alone. Who would have thought that such a strong person would be encountered on the first expedition to the Norden Star? The Skeleton Corps, who were previously riled up, were now astounded. This was an extreme attack designed just to slay the opponent. How can the Northerners be so shameless as to send out their IG elites? **T, how can IG players play court, and even declare a battle here? How brutish of them. Do all War God #1 players become gods? Unbelievable. That last strike was heaven-shattering. The Northerners' ace player is out. Those who are famous in the Milky Way but come here to challenge Northerners are just looking for their own demise. The titanium gun suddenly hummed. This bunch of idiots only knew how to see the power level of things. Power levels were meaningless. The essence of the triple blitz lay not in its offensive power. Earthlings, you guys deserve to be forgotten in the midst of history. Open your eyes and look carefully at where you tread next time, Yuan Long said. It seemed as though his opponent was startled by his provocation. The Hercules stood coldly, silently staring at the opponent. Yuan Long was going to strike, the tip of his gun angled slightly. On the other side, the Hercules twitched slightly as well. Yuan Long's pupils contracted. The war god #1 had made a slight adjustment in position, aligning with the tip of the gun. On the other side, the Hercules' position had adjusted accordingly. Yuan Long frowned. Could it be a coincidence? He had made 5 consecutive adjustments, but his opponent's one move left him speechless. From the 6 dragon lances to the triple blitz, it was not the sheer force that was difficult to master. Rather, the key aspect of these moves was the angle of the first strike that made it almost impossible to dodge. No one had noticed this in the past, until now. That was why Yuan Long was so confident in this technique of his. Even when faced with stronger opponents, no one could decipher this key aspect of his technique. But, the war god #1's adjustments gradually became larger. Every move he made was matched by one from the Hercules. He was countered at each position, making him feel extremely angry. This was impossible. He had tested it out before. It was impossible to see the essence of the move through these small adjustments. The broadcast room was silent, and so was the CT's 2 headquarter buildings. Yuan Long was going to deliver a show. The strongest Northerner technique. Everyone was eager to witness the move and see the Hercules turn into a pile of scrap metal. What was wrong with the war god #1? Discussions arose. Was it not just a simple task to strike and end the opponent? The Hercules threw the shovel towards his opponent, gesturing for Yuan Long to strike. Yuan Long's mind was in a blaze. Was this guy stupid? He had never met a more stubborn opponent. Wang Zheng did not understand why so many people looked down on Earthlings. Didn't humans all originate from Earth? Didn't all these techniques have influences from early human civilization? Every technique could be traced back to early history. His opponent's 3-pronged blitz was not bad, but it could not be considered great. The flaws were clear because the starting position was obvious, so it could be easily countered by opponents. Extreme technological and psychological abilities could cover the flaws, but even then it was never a definite thing. All of the spectators were whispering. The live viewer count had already hit 15 million. The hearts of the supporters dropped seeing Skeleton throw his shovel away. With such a fierce attack, how was a defense possible without the shovel? The Hercules' strength came with the rotating shovel. Did he want to get killed? The idiot on the other side was just so arrogant, and yet he was being so hesitant now? Yuan Long clenched his jaws. He could not find a good position. His opponent had even thrown his shovel to the ground. He could not tolerate his opponent's fearlessness. It must have just been a coincidence. It was not possible. Kill! The war god struck out with a demeanor even fiercer than before. At the same moment, the Hercules moved, possibly even a step before the war god did. The biggest advantage of this lightning assault was the fierce barrage of attacks. However, the changes in the strikes were predictable and one's scope of judgment was limited as the strike had to be delivered instantaneously. It was a move that even pulverized one into dust. Since the attack required so much strength, only 30% of one's energy was left after the attack. If one chose to exert 100% of their energy, it was basically gambling with one's life. Bang! 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 The titanium gun struck out and a silver laser flashed out of the muzzle. The Hercules made minute adjustments, while the war god also moved accordingly, relentless in the pursuit. Everyone's eyeballs nearly bounced out of their sockets. The point-blank shot had actually missed. Anyone in the audience would not have missed at such a range. Yuan Long felt as though he was dunked in cold water. At this point, he could feel his opponent observing him quietly. 2 wrong moves. The war god's titanium gun suddenly disappeared. And reappeared in front of the war god's chest half a second later. Bang! Skeleton win. The entire audience was speechless. The camera slowly zoomed in. Yuan Long missed the attack completely. He was too complacent, and his ego had affected him. How did you do it? This was a devastating blow to Yuan Long. He had dismissed the possibility of a counter to his move countless times. The Hercules slowly retrieved the shovel from the floor. Want to know why? Come to earth. Wang Jung shrugged his shoulders. He truly wanted to see how strong his opponent's moves were, but he got serious. In Bonehead's words, it was as though he was bullying a child. After exiting CT, Wang Jung rubbed his face. He could have upgraded his skills with the shovel if he had actually tried to deflect the opponent's triple blitz. Alas, it was too late. Wang Jung wanted to ask for a rematch. Perhaps this time he would not move and Yuan Long could try his attack again? Tyrant Su rushed over, gritting his teeth. Boss, that was just too cool and way too awesome. You even delivered a psychological blow to him. You trashed him so soundly too. It's rare to meet an elite. Let's give him another chance. Yan Xiaoshu spat in shock. He truly didn't want to let Yuan Long go? Wait. What did that mean? Earth and Norden were two diametrical opposites. Solon shook his head lightly. You only appreciate life when you are going to die. It was indeed a thrilling match, but who would have thought that Skeleton would make a big move at that critical moment? An overbearing person was more likely to make a mistake once mocked, and it was actually the case. Go. Let's change the topic on the forums to, executed Norden IG Kid, Solon said. Boss, isn't that too much? The staff questioned. This is called giving him a taste of his medicine. We cannot let Earth be looked down upon. Roger. Another story gradually unfolded on the forum section. How did Yuan Long miss? Did he suddenly feel unwell? This Earthling is too lucky. F***ck. I hate this feeling. He had already thrown his weapon on the floor and yet still managed to attain victory. Request for a rematch. Coward. How could that Earthling turn this into a psychological battle? We fight with guns and swords. People automatically ignored the contestants' dialogue and only believed in what they saw. The vast majority of the spectators thought it was because of good luck and laughed at Skeleton's psychological strength. Some did not laugh but instead felt that something was amiss. This was not a psychological battle. Yuan Long was obviously not an idiot. Any IG competitor was definitely mentally strong, unless they were to say that the Milky Way Alliance military consisted of pigs. Chen Shu and Yao Ailun were both doubtful. The two were playing the video in slow motion, attempting to analyze the battle. It seemed as though no move was made by Skeleton. It was indeed a battle of wills. Perhaps the result could be due to the opponent's stupidity as he had fallen for such a simple trick. Ailun, how about we just let it be? We can't find anything different compared to the official site. These days of summer were great. It was all thanks to Xiao Fei's appreciation that he could come home and enjoy his special status. Little Shu, come and play with older sister. Stop watching those useless things, little Shu. Let's go swimming. Second and third sister, I am busy, Chen Shu replied. A massive window overlooked the sea and a beautiful scenery. There was an outdoor pool in the yard, and the two beauties started swimming. They were joined by a voluptuous girl carrying a drink in one hand. Sis, Chen Shu is turning into an otaku. We should drag him out here. You guys are truly bullying your brother every day. Chen Shu felt helpless. Growing up, girls did not like to play with him because of his beautiful sisters. It left other girls feeling inferior. Now that he was finally in college, he was finally rid of them. Slow down the speed by 3 times and start with an analysis of the angle of attack. I feel that something is amiss. There must be some reason to why he is hesitating to attack, Yao Ailun said.